Okay, so here we are again with more Highlander news. So I just got back from a weekend away, so like just catching up on all this. So we had two huge announcements, kind of bookended the weekend. First, you have the announcement of Jaimin Honsu coming in, and of course going to be playing, well, essentially Castigear. Um, Obviously we don't know if they're going to be changing some character names, but essentially, immortal who comes from Africa, and of course in the context of the original film befriends Connor, and then is ultimately defeated by the Kurgan. He survives till the gathering, but he's kind of like, I think he's the last to go, isn't he? Because the Kurgan in the original film has the line, Castigator is gone, now only you and I remain. So, cool character. Obviously, played in the original by Captain Panaka from Phantom Menace. But the thing was, didn't really get a lot of him in the final theatrically released cut of the film. From what I understand, there was a few deleted scenes that Castigair appeared in with Connor. I think they go to a nightclub at one point, something like that. But yeah, cool character, and again, just the idea of all of these different immortals from across the world, each with their own unique fighting style as well. That's going to be very, very cool to see. Of course, I'm just fascinated because it's been in, well, Highlander as a whole has been in the works for a long time, but the guys at 8711, since they came on board, some of just the sequences they'll have came up with, I'm so excited to see what it's going to look like. So yeah, Jaimin Honsu, fantastic actor, of course, been around a long time. Obviously, was with Russell Crowe in Gladiator, and then of course stuff like Blood Diamond, and then kind of, some of the more like big blockbuster stuff. Obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy, Fast and Furious 7 as well, stuff like that. So this is a guy of Shazam, of course. Um, so he's been in a lot of big, high profile things. Even The Kingsman, of course, which again, I really like that one. It didn't really do much at the box office, but I liked The Kingsman, especially when we got into the second half. It really, really switches gears and levels up. But obviously, he had a cool role to play in that one as kind of like Ray Fiennes' right hand man. So a great, great actor, and again, I really hope Castigair gets like a more expanded role in this. Especially like we were saying, kind of in reference to Karen Gillan, actors of this sort of caliber, you know, hopefully you want to see them in more substantial roles rather than something that's maybe, it's a horrible thing to say, but in a sense throwaway, certainly in relation to Castigair. Of course, the Heather McLeod role that it looks like Karen Gillan's going to be playing, an important character in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, Connor's wife. But obviously, in terms of like the actual screen time we got from her in the original film. Also, one of the things I really like about the Heather McLeod character, in the original, obviously when Connor, his immortality is activated, for lack of a better term. Obviously, he's cast out by his village. Obviously everyone except, is it his cousin Angus MacLeod? He's the only one who gives, takes some kind of pity on him, and obviously he's the one who basically, saves him from being burnt alive. Well, not that burning him alive would have done anything. It would have just been very, very uncomfortable. But yeah, and then so he's cast out. But then, of course, while he's wandering the wilderness, obviously encounters Heather. So it'd be nice to see how they end up meeting. But one of the things I thought was really, really cool about that character, even when she finds out what he is, it doesn't change anything. She still loves him, still stands beside him, and even obviously going through all the stuff with when Ramirez shows up. Obviously all of this weird stuff that's been just laid down on her. She just rolls with the punches, and then of course the horrific thing that happens after Ramirez is killed, and basically she's gonna see this, maybe say a word that's not safe for YouTube. Well, fuck it. She's raped by the Kurgan. It's what it is. Absolutely horrific stuff. And again, she lives with that for a long time. She never tells Connor. But then obviously Connor finally finds out hundreds of years later when the Kurgan's just yammering away in the church, and it's like, oh, it's a if it wasn't game on before, it's game on now. That's a moment I'm really, because the way Chris Lambert plays it in the original film, because like I say, he's got Lambert never got the credit either, but he's a very, very good actor when he puts his mind to it. Obviously, he's been in a lot of dreck, but he's when he's on, he's on. Obviously, remarkable performance we get from him in Subway, but obviously he has these fantastic eyes. Now, of course, it was revealed later on he can't really see much. And again, there, if you want an evidence of how good an actor Lambert really is, a guy who's acting through these movies and he can barely see what's in front of him. Yeah, kind of changes the way you think. But yeah, just the look, because obviously in that scene in the church, it's the Kurgan really who does all the talking. But yeah, the look that Christopher Lambert gives Clancy Brown, and obviously just that little bit of physical acting, because the Kurgans will poke a bit more, Ramirez lied, she wasn't his woman, she was your woman, she never told you. When he just grabs basically the scruff of his jacket, and then just that, again, a very, very cold, because you'd always had the sense, because obviously the Kurgan was always the imposing figure. Well, it'll happen when you're 7 foot tall wielding a broadsword against 5'10" Chris Lambert, who's basically just been thrown into this whole thing by the Kurgan. The Kurgan was the one who triggered the immortality in him in the first place. But obviously, you'd always sense that, yeah, Connor was the one who was basically, he's always in the back of the mind somewhere out there. The Kurgan's, lurking and eventually going to come face to face. I don't know how I'm going to handle it. But the moment that switch, it's like a switch is flipped. And I absolutely love that delivery. Where basically, again, Connor just grabs him by the mush and just, I'll be out front. It's like, okay, that's going to be great. But yeah, obviously the whole of this, obviously Heather McLeod, Castigair, they're not characters who get a lot to do in the original film. It would be great to see them expand on these characters. It's good, yeah. So that was the addition of Djimon Hounsou, again, Academy Award nominated actor as well, so bringing in some big guns. Again, fantastic stuff. And then, as if that wasn't enough, a few days later we get this other announcement completely out of the blue. Again, I was with my nearest and dearest over the weekend, so I kind of had bigger things. I had my hands full, imagine that. But just casually in some downtime, just checking through the news feed. Deadline article. Highlander adds Max Zhang, or Jin Zhang, if you prefer. And I'm like, oh, that was unexpected. Max Zhang is fantastic. He's he's a great actor, and he's a fantastic martial artist. He's a very, very cool guy. He always has a fantastic presence about him. Obviously, I kind of was introduced to him through Ip Man 3. He's in there with Donnie Yen. Very, very cool character. Initially, brought in an antagonistic kind of role, but then obviously revealed, oh no, wait, this guy isn't a cartoon villain. There's actually layers to this guy. And then he gets his own spin-off, Master Z, which is very, very good. And again, it's great to see, obviously, Max Zhang, who was a supporting player in Ip Man 3, kind of becomes the main character in the spin-off Master Z, and again, very, very good. And again, pits him up against Dave Bautista. Um, and yeah, and then off the back of that, because I was like, okay, I really like this guy, I want to see him in more stuff. Then Escape Plan 3 comes along, and he's there again with Dave Bautista. Escape Plan 3, I've never really been I never cared for the original Escape Plan. And then obviously we had Escape Plan 2, which was very different. Almost its own thing, really. And again, geared, a lot of people have said the Escape Plan 2 and Escape Plan 3 were kind of geared towards a more basically the Chinese audience. Which, to be honest, I like a lot of the Chinese stuff, so I'm all about that. But I really like Escape Plan 3. It's schlock, but it's good, really down and dirty style filmmaking. I think they shot it in 3 weeks, so it was real in and out. But Max Jang, he is the coolest guy ever in that movie. Obviously, he's got this romantic subplot with the main girl who's taken as a hostage. But yeah, he's fantastic, and I always remember because again, Stallone. I've never known how to take Stallone on the Stallone Schwarzenegger debate. I've always preferred Arnie to Stallone, but never outright disliked Stallone. And I certainly appreciate the work he's done over the. He's a guy who cares, and he's a guy who's worked tremendously hard. Earned everything he's got. But obviously sometimes, he can't get out of his own way, whether it's ego or, all that macho stuff. But when there's a scene when Stallone and Max Jang's character meet each other for the first time, and they kind of face off, and Stallone's doing his typical tough guy routine. He holds a gun in Max Jang's face, and he's kind of tough talking Max Jang, kind of Stallone doing his I'm the alpha, what I say is and Max Jang's just looking at it, and it's like, Stallone, you gotta stop, man. Max Jang is walking away with it. But he's kind of got that, again, it's a stupid word now. Well, it's kind of been turned into a stupid word, but that whole stoic thing, because we've had it in so many films that are geared for the modern audience, this character's stoic, that character's stoic. But, occasionally you still kind of get representations of what stoicism was classically about. I really think Max Jang does capture some of that. And this guy's the real deal as well, because he's came up through, in the Chinese film industry, they don't play. You got to be tough. So Max Jang, he's the truth. And he has this great fight scene with Daniel Bernhardt at the end of Escape Plan 3, which is great. But yeah, Max Jang is fantastic. So I was so incredibly excited. Working with the 87 guys, what they're going to be able to put together is... but yeah, Max Jang's done some great stuff. Obviously, Escape Plan, Ip Man. Obviously, working with Wong Kar-wai on the Grandmaster. Working with Tony Jaa on SPL 2 or Killzone 2, depending on where you are in the world. But this is a guy as well. He can do both. If you want him to be a villain, he can be a villain. If you want him to be the heroic character, he can be great in both. I'm interested to see what character he's going to play. Again, is he going to be something new? Or, here we go, courtesy of the Radiodrome podcast, good old Josh Hadley, when they were doing their Highlander retrospective, they were talking about, obviously, a lot of the stuff that was cut from the film, and then, of course, all of that footage was destroyed in a warehouse fire. There was an Asian immortal called Youngdol Kim. You can still Google this. They've kind of got a Highlander wiki, which has a page dedicated to the character. Now, this was a character that survived to the time of the gathering, but eventually, obviously, faces off. The Kurgan tracks him down. They face off. Well, I don't know if they actually do, because basically, when you read the description, it kind of young Dog Kim. He's had enough. He wants to go, so he kind of just lays down his swords. Now, I don't know if Max Jung will be playing that character, or if he'll be playing a new character altogether. It's possible. But there's so much to be excited about, the potential. And we might even be days away from them rolling cameras. I'm so incredibly excited for this. We're nearly there. By the end of the month, they'll be filming. And just the way this cast is shaping up, like you can see Amazon's putting everything into this. And again, engaging with a bit of hyperbole here, this has the potential to be the greatest film ever made. Or, at the very least, it might be the greatest remake ever made. But yeah, what have we got? So we've got Henry Cavill, we've got Russell Crowe, we've got Dave Bautista, and then obviously we've got Marissa Rabella, we've got Karen Gillan, and now we've got Jaimin Honsu and Max Jang. Let's go. Honestly, this... And again, I have all the faith in the world in Chad Stahelski. I love this guy. You know, this guy's came up as a stunt guy and then obviously working his way into like assistant and second unit directing. And now obviously what he's done with the John Wick. Now people have mixed feelings on the subsequent John Wick films. Obviously the first one's pretty universally. Everyone agrees the first one's awesome. But obviously there was a change that happened in the second one, thinking we're getting out of the realism and we're getting into the fantasy realm. And that continued on, you know, through 2, 3, 4 and then into the ballerina. I'm all, honestly, I have all goodwill towards the John Wick films. I love them. I eat them up. I appreciate they're not for everyone. They've turned into cartoons, but I love it. But the tremendous style that's showcased throughout these films, and I'm just bring all of that to Highlander. But yeah, there's so much to be excited about. Thank you for listening to me go on and on and on. We've spiraled all over the place, but honestly, Jaimin Honsu, great addition. But then obviously what we got a few days later with Max Jang, so incredibly excited. And you never know, they're just the names that have been announced. There'll probably be a couple of other surprises turning up in this thing as well. So I'm all for it. But there's so much to be excited about. So again, Highlander is imminent in terms of rolling cameras. So let's watch this space. Hopefully we might get some set photos. But thank you for listening to me ramble. Please feel free to share your thoughts. And it's time to get excited. Let's go. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.